Well, of course, Mariel and I had worked together before, but we certainly didn't map out exactly what we were going to do. We were just sort of enjoying telling you stories and talking about our lives. So I'm just going to mention right now what a project that I'm working on, and part of it is coming from a story from a woman who died recently in Australia. Her name is Kitty Fisher. The interesting thing with Kitty Fisher is she was a Holocaust survivor that in the last years of her life raised money and a considerable amount of money to put up a monument in Sydney, Australia, of the Pink Triangle. And her reason was simple, that there was a great deal of interest and knowledge about the Holocaust and what had happened to Jews in the Holocaust. But there wasn't a great deal or support for information about the men who had died wearing the Pink Triangle. And so she dedicated a great deal of her life to raising the funds for this. And the reason she did this is when she was a teenager, she was sent to Auschwitz with her family, with her mother and father, and it was in about 1943. Her parents, as soon as they arrived, were sent to the gas chamber. And she and her sister were sent to the showers. There, it was a cold November day. They were stripped. They had their hair shorn. They were showered, and when they were leaving the showers, they were sent to the latrines, which were really only wooden planks over great pits. Well, she had always been told as a child never to sit on a toilet that wasn't your own. So she was trying to squat over these wooden planks when one of the Nazis pushed her into the latrine. So she was naked, covered in filth, and all of the others had been sent back to where they were going to be in the barracks. So there she was in this pit, covered in filth, and naked, and too embarrassed to get up, not knowing what to do, when a man in striped pajamas came over and told her to take his hand and get out. But she was naked and she didn't want to. She was embarrassed. But he told her that she had to hurry, for he had work to do, and he was carrying a bucket of whitewash and a brush. He said that she would have to hurry and get out. And he helped her out. And the thing was that he was wearing the pajamas with a pink triangle. Well, she knew what the yellow star stood for. And she thought that the Pink Triangle was a different religion. And she asked him about his religion. And he explained that the Pink Triangle was not a religion at all, but it was being used by the Nazis to send any homosexual men in Germany to the concentration camps. She knew nothing about this, and she didn't know what a homosexual was either. And he explained to her why he was there, that he had been an artist, and he was being sent, he had been sent to the camp, and that he had been there for years. He helped her out, and he helped her find her sister and get to the barracks. And after that, he also would go and find food for her, and helped her by getting jacket potatoes, as she calls them. And he would bring her potatoes so that she and her sister could survive. And it was just that it was quite close to the end of the war, when it was announced that there was going to be a shipment of young people to work in a factory. And this young man said to her, under no accounts was she not to find every way she had to get to this factory. For indeed, if she wasn't part of that shipment to the factory, she would have been killed. And so indeed, she and her sister both managed to get work and be part of the shipment to that factory. And it's because she knew that this man saved her life. And as years went on, as she grew older, she realized that she owed her life to a stranger wearing a pink triangle. And as much as there was lots of information about the people that had died in the Holocaust, there was very little information about the men who died wearing a pink triangle. And the numbers aren't huge. It's only 10 or 15,000 men that were murdered. And in comparison to the millions, but can you really, is it worth making comparisons? Those were still victims of the Holocaust. So in a couple of weeks I'm going to Berlin and Amsterdam to take a look and see if I can find any other stories about the Pink Triangle. And there are certainly other monuments to the Pink Triangle and the men who died. And it's interesting that the stories are so important that in Sheepshead Bay, just outside of New York, they recently built a Holocaust memorial. And it was just a series of tombstones. And there was somebody who wanted the story of gay men included. So they wanted the Pink Triangle brought in and put on one of the tombstones. But the local city councilor said absolutely not. That his grandmother had been through the Holocaust, and there was no comparison of the suffering of gay men to the suffering of the Jews. And so there was great consternation and fighting at city council for years until finally it was decided that there was the need to have a memorial to the gay men. And part of that is thanks to the work of this woman, Kitty Fisher. So I'm working on a book right now that will be working on telling that story, and it will be framed by the story of Kitty Fisher, because I think her story is, quite powerful and important. But the other thing that I also want to do, because you know that I am now retired, and I've got to figure out what I want to do with the rest of my life. One of the things that I want to do is pull together stories of working in the library, because each one of us have these fabulous stories, and funny stories, sad stories, stories that matter. And it was just that at my retirement party, I had to think about what I was going to say. And it was those early days working in the library. And I'm sure Marielle has other of her stories, but I can remember so many bizarre things that happened. And I'll just say, one of my favorites was, I started out as a page. I started out as a borrower. Certainly going to story hours in the library where I heard the best person, Lynn Cook, who was a children's writer. But when I started working in the library, it was really funny. There was a woman who had just recently divorced. And she was working in the library with us. And on a Friday night, somebody put on the circulation desk a box. And it was addressed to the beautiful young woman who worked in the library. Now, everyone knew who the beautiful young woman was. She was this page. And she was gorgeous, there wasn't any question. And there was this gift. And inside was a pair of earrings. And the suggestion was to the beautiful young woman, if you want a date with a stranger, wear these earrings and I'll know you're interested. Difficulty was, the box had arrived after the branch closed and was sitting on the desk when the library opened on Saturday morning. So this young girl was terrified. She figured she had a stalker. And I was like the person in charge. I told them what we should do. We all agreed that this young girl should not get the earrings or wear them. But it was this other woman, Sylvia, who just said, I've got the perfect solution. Give those earrings to me. She said, the way I figure it, it's a win-win situation. Give them to me, I'll wear them. If this guy comes in, sees me wearing the earrings, he's going to get frightened off and just disappear. And if that doesn't happen, he's going to look at me and think, well, not what I was first expecting. But not so bad. And maybe I'll get a date. And indeed, Sylvia wore the earrings and we never heard anything further from that guy. Now, poor Sylvia. She just retired a few years ago. We had fun talking about storytelling.